Hey, how about we talk about the Vampire Lestat episode 3? As usual, I'm going to be scrubbing through the episode as I deliver my thoughts to you. There will be spoilers. And I did read a little more of the book. I'm reading along with the show, so I'm not too far into it. And, the show is kind of like bouncing back and forth between different things, including things from future books. But yeah, I'm not going to be doing much spoilers for future stuff because I don't know much of future stuff. But yeah, this episode is pretty wild. You might have thought maybe they'd slowed things down a bit, because last couple episodes was pretty jam-packed. This one's even more jam-packed, I feel like. I forgot already that they introed this episode with this murder of this couple here. It's a fun little murder scene. We get an idea what happens as Gabriella photobombs. It's a little funny thing. Also, this episode's like probably one of the funnier ones. It's actually all over the place. There's like this is like ups and downs, so many different things going on. But one of the major things is definitely this interview session going on with Malloy here, doing the kind of Errol Morris. Is that the documentary guy type of style of documentary where like the interviewee looks into like this LCD screen of the interviewer, and he seems to be getting a lot out of Lestat here, But then there's a big twist coming up here. The opening credit scene is always great. Still love it. So yeah. This is a lot more confrontational than the interview process with Louis. And then, but speaking of Louis, we do get cutbacks to him delivering his vengeance. Of course, remember last time he found out that Bruce was the leader of this vampire gang. So we get to see how Louis has gotten much better. He was always really good at vampire slaying, but he's upgraded. Look, he's got the flight ability now. That's something new. I guess he developed it within the last couple years, because we saw Armand flying in the last season, picking going up to the bookshelf to choose a book on the bookshelf that was floating up in the air. But I don't think we ever saw Louis, so be doing it. But and the thing is that also this is like, you gotta remember, this is like what, almost 100 years or so after the Vampire Theater of the Vampires. Was that in the 20s, or was that in that was after World War II? Never mind. So that was like the 40s, probably, right? So it's like 80 years or so, or abouts, since he went on the killing spree to get rid of the Vampire Theater troupe. But he continues to be this master vampire assassin, and I believe that's a departure from the books. I don't know if maybe later on he becomes master assassin or not, but he doesn't seem this powerful in the chapters I read. And it's kind of similar to the scene we saw in the second season, right? We don't really get to see up close and personal the action, which I don't mind. Like I think it's nice. It's an efficient way of showcasing the murder there, through the windows there, and we see like the blood bank situation here, the farm bank or whatever that they have here, a small group of thralls for the vampires here. And because we've been wondering, like, how does this blood farm work? And this is not the official blood farm that Lestat and everybody else has been talking about. This is like a small one that the vampire teeth gang has come up with here. And I imagine they've enslaved and enthralled these people as captors, and they're not willingly doing this, as opposed to the farm thing that Lestat said was ethical in the last episode. but he rescues them. You know, he's a good vampire, and this is all vengeance quest. So we're gonna get back to that in a second. But back to the freaking interview. The mother's is just is watching and laughing along. In the background there, we get a sense here in this episode that she is a sort of tag along throughout the whole Vampire Lestat storyline here, and we're gonna start introducing a little bit of that comedy here in a second. But first, we're gonna go to that flashback to France, where we see Lestat discover Nikki here. Though it seems that they've been previously acquainted in their own village. In the book, I have read this part. In the book, Nikki and Lestat spend a good amount of time in their village. They became friends there, and then they moved to Paris. But in this adaptation, we kind of mix things up a bit, and now they meet. Nikki's already there, and Lestat has a stutter here, which is a new thing that didn't occur in the books. In the books, he was like illiterate. That was the thing about Lestat. And then when he became a vampire, he could read. He started able to read again, or started to read. And it came to him naturally. I think there might be some connection with, like, when you start drinking blood, you start absorbing the sort of powers and intellect of the people you drink or something. I don't know. But this little thing, it's kind of reminiscent of the drinking scene we have in the book. But not so much. It's kind of sped up too. Like, the whole thing here is that he's telling Daniel, his story, and kind of truncating it to skip by all the boring bits, basically, which kind of serves as a way to fast forward it for the audience at home as well. Because we have kind of got a little bit of the relationship with him and Nikki in last season. So this is this whole episode's a little bit of like adding almost like deleted scenes from that, from Lestat's perspective to that time, his early years in Paris as a vampire, and also leading up to that. And a lot of like fun, quick dialogue here contentious dialogue here between Daniel and Lestat here. As usual, we did have subtitles, and then they went away again. Let's put those on. And so now this is the comedy bit. This is where, like, it starts to get, it's been funny. Like, there's been some clever, funny, witty lines throughout this season so far. But I think it really picks up here. More the comedic beats pick up here, particularly here we have Gabriella and Lestat's body double banging in the bathroom. It's like, get out. And it's funny because he's like quiet on set, even though they're, because you can hear it while they're on set. But that's like, it's a common thing you hear on movie sets, right? Quiet on set, no fucking in the bathroom, please. Or if you do so, do it with the low volume, and the funny thing is that, of course, she's banging his body double, because the incest thing is still a thing here, although we kind of, it seems like this episode's kind of like placing in the scenes here is like, okay, like we're maybe Lestat is stepping away from the mother or son love a bit more now, and he's starting to see his mother as a sort of a nuisance, as we're going to see in a second, and also maybe tie it back to the potential abuse here that he's experienced. But this is a funny little bit here, and also one thing I didn't realize is that the body double is actually Sam Reed. He's playing his own body double. They just like add some different like prosthetics. I think they give him some new teeth or something. But it's actually the same actor, which is funny. I didn't realize that. And then here we have the other comedic bit that like I'm curious to see how other people respond, but I feel like this is probably one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. It's almost like this parody version of you know, the story of Magnus taking Lestat and creating him, making him a vampire, you know. And there's so many layers to this. Like this episode, there's so much stuff going on, so much like fluctuating between genres in a way of comedy, horror, drama, like tragedy, all that stuff. And of course, this is all, you know, kind of like showcasing how Lestat is suppressing his trauma, right, through his creation of his music and through his imagination and retelling of how he was sired, you know, to kind of avoid the abuse that he experienced, you know, and make it out to seem like, oh, it wasn't that bad, you know, which is a coping mechanism, of course. And we're going to see that play out throughout this episode. But of course, you know, this is obviously like a really like horrific experience, but the almost like sugarcoating of it with this like music video is just like, you know, peak vampire comedy here. It almost plays out like a sort of like sketch comedy skit, almost of like what you would see in a sketch comedy show or something. And I wonder if it's gonna put off some people, but I actually really enjoyed it because I don't know, like it plays so well thematically with what Lestat is kind of like imagining his song about this abuse is about, and how he's coping with it, and how he's like hiding it, and it kind of like gives also, you know, gives some more comic relief to the show as well. And we're not, you know, meant to, you know, it doesn't like pull me out so much because it's like it kind of understands that the audience will get it, you know. It's not so much making fun of the story or of the show. It's more like an insight on it's still meta, but it's like an insight on Lestat's psyche in a fun way, and it's done so well that like it's a bit upsetting that it kind of ends up here in too quickly. I think like I would have loved to see the whole video, you know. And the song is really good. It's a really fun song that's like a nice little pop ballad that, you know, is also kind of reminiscent of maybe some other like, you know, famous pop songs. I think he even references some that kind of sugarcoat abuse, or, you know, if you really look into the lyrics, they're like, wait, that feels weird. Like he mentions the Police song, like the Police song, I'll Be Watching You. What's it called? That's kind of like about pretty much like about a stalker, but it's like through the perspective of a stalker, but doesn't really. It's almost like it's not self-aware, but of course this show is very much self-aware of what's going on, and I don't know. I thought this was just great. Like at this point, I was like, okay, this is actually a good episode, because I was kind of thinking, you know, before this, I was like, are they like, is this episode kind of just like spinning its wheels a little bit? But I don't know. I feel like we'll see how people react, but this could be a turning point for some people. Like, okay, some people are gonna dislike this from this moment on. They're gonna probably not like the show, and others will. We'll see. Like it could be a divisive moment here. But I'm into it, and also, you know, because it ties into like the whole thing. We have this is like, you know, we'll see later on, like almost like the truthful version of what happened, connecting it with Louis' experience and Claudia's experience later on. But anyways, and so, you know, and then here's another comical moment here, you know, which is like, I mean, the body double is kind of like a comedic relief as well. So how it balances these moments, this show, I feel like, again, like could be a divisive thing, but I'm enjoying these moments here. Um, I think it works well. I think the performances work well for it. Here he basically is annoyed because Gabriella's fucking his double, who's like he feels is obviously like it's beneath him, and he has a vampire blow magic trick here, or a special ability where he actually just a simple little blow is able to make him go flying. Like that's new. How we see we see vampires have super like the power to like super strength and stuff like that. But with the blow, like like Superman or something can do this, but vampires can too, I guess. Vampires can fly, so I guess maybe they have special blow powers with their strong lungs. And but that's interesting. Again, I think it's played off more for laughs than to showcase more of his powers. But also, like, you can imagine that they have telepathic powers. Maybe vampires in this universe have a sort of telekinesis as well, and with a little push of air, and perhaps with their mind abilities, they can. It's almost like they're using part of their telekinetic powers to push people, with their super strength, and it's a combination of it or something. I don't know. But that's a funny little moment there. But of course, we also have to remember, as we see later on, like this whole sequence, this whole interview thing is sort of an allusion to Daniel. So like, to what extent is all this actually happening? What's an exaggeration? So maybe that plays into the comic bit of it, and maybe even the music video of Magnus creating Lestat is a sort of like illusion projected into Daniel Malloy's mind or something. I don't know. There's probably different various interpretations of all this, but we go back and we see a scene from the previous season where Armand shows up. He's going to show up in a second, some more, and he, I guess. If we remember, Nikki was sacrificed in a way, or tortured by the coven over there, and Lestat goes rescues Nikki, and brings it back to life. At this point, Lestat is already a vampire, and Nikki's questioning him like, "Where do you get all these powers? Why did your eyes change?" And here we have the introduction of the mother coming in. It's like, oh, the mother's alive, and now this is news to Daniel, right? Because he was never told about the mother. And there's a moment here where we're like, oh, is he going to reveal that Sophia is Gabriella? Is he going to out his mother right here, right then? But no, he just says like, oh no, she's here in my heart, and that was so he's not going to fully tell everything to Daniel at this moment. But for the audience here, of course, we're piecing all these things together. We're remembering the last season, and now we're like, it's like a puzzle piece. Putting these pieces all together to make sense of this. And this is like, and again, we see this is an exact almost scene from last season, right? And like, the whole thing is that this whole season, like it was, I think some of the producers are saying like, oh no, you can watch this season without having watched the previous seasons. And like, they say that for a lot of things, people, the money people behind all these shows and TVs and games and stuff, they want you to buy and purchase and view the latest, greatest thing, right? Because they got to make that money, of course. And they're always like, oh, you don't have to watch the previous stuff in this franchise, or you don't have to watch all those other movies or shows or read the books or whatever. But it's so much richer if you do. And really, like, I'm wondering how new viewers are reacting to this. Like, who is this Armand character they're thinking, and like this scene, like the layers of this scene, like just play so much better if you've seen the first couple seasons, right? But yeah, so this is basically that scene repeated, but with the inclusion of Gabriella now is in the booth, you know. And if you remember in the last season, we saw the scene. It was much more romantic, you know, between Armand and Lestat. And Armand's like, "I love you," and Lestat's like, "I love you too." And and of course, you know, we don't get to see the outburst of Nikki going mad in the crowd there. But here, you know, Lestat's much colder. He's like, when Armand says "I love you," or yeah, he says "I love you," Lestat's just like, "Oh Christ," and so he doesn't get the "I love you" back. And then we have the Gabriella in the booth as well, and adding to the drama, the love triangle situation again. Now it's like a love quadruple situation. It's like it's so heightened now. Like there's so much you know, drama between all these four characters now. Like everyone is loving Lestat, is fighting for Lestat. It's like a freaking reality show here. It's, I don't know, it's so great. Like again, like having seen the previous seasons, of course, like this just compounds on top of each other, all these different layers of these different personalities. And now we're getting Lestat's perspective, which of course is colored through his point of view, and potentially and most likely also not completely true either. You know, is this closer to reality? Perhaps, but you know, not quite. And here, like Armand seems a little bit more feels a little bit more, even more submissive, and not really like, doesn't seem to react too much by the fact that Lestat doesn't return the love. We see maybe a little more of that later. But then of course, you know, again, the comedy of it all is heightened here with Gabriella's presence. Like, you know, the fact that he's his fledgling and she's a mother, that kind of adds to the like the weird vampiric otherworldly comedy of it all, almost like the absurdity of this whole situation by including her in all these scenes. You know, it feels like, again, even this scene here, like it plays out like specifically for the fans of the show and these characters, because like coming into this without having like previous knowledge of what's kind of going on here, like I imagine you'd be lost, right? Like much more than you would think, than typical. Then even it's even a bit discombobulating for regular fans, I imagine. But here, you know, we have Nikki going mad. So this is one of the consequences of becoming a vampire. Some people just aren't adept to it, aren't able to process that. I mean, you know, becoming an immortal vampire can you know, it's not for everybody. And it definitely is not working out for Nikki here, who cuts his own hand off. I think Lestat even calls him bipolar at some point. So I don't know, perhaps not an official diagnosis, but certainly Nikki has had some issues beforehand, and now is completely unstable as a vampire. And of course, Gabriella's laughing about it. She's like the coldest vampire of them all, or in the sense of an unsympathetic vampire of them all. You know, Armand, of course, is similarly annoyed, but you know, he at least is not like giggling. And because this is like tragic. This is like, you know, pretty serious stuff. Like, you know, he's Nikki's going through this like mental illness here, having these suicidal tendencies here, and it's breaking Lestat's heart too, because you know Nikki, he's like, it's his first love, right? And like, and the whole thing before this was Nikki was crying out to Lestat to turn him, because like he wanted to like know that Lestat loved him just as much as he loved, his mother and other people, like he felt like he was being left out, and so Lestat felt compelled to turn him into a vampire. It's a big old love drama here, and like it all comes down to this, where he's like, oh shit, like this is what I've wrought. Now Nikki's is gone completely mad, and I've created this monster in a way, or created this person and contributed to his madness, and now we have to kill him or something, because he's suicidal, and you get the sense that like everyone here is, except for Lestat, it's like, this of course sympathetic, but Armand and Gabriella are definitely annoyed, and just, you can sense that they want to just get rid of Nicky. He's like, he's a nuisance, so just get rid of him. He's of no use. He's mad. He's not going to survive anyways. He's going to kill himself anyways. But we feel the emotion here. We feel Lestat's sadness here, as he describes Armand pushing him into the fire here, which we don't see. Like, you could, at certain points, right, in this show where we're being told, or we're seeing things from afar, it's one of the script writing things is it's best to show, not tell. But like certain moments like this, I think, it depends. Like there's certain exceptions that I think work better as telling versus showing, particularly here, where we actually see it's within the context of an interview, and we see Lestat crying in bloody tears, recounting the episode. And it, on the one hand, it does save on the budget, right? You don't have to shoot a scene of an actor being burnt up, being pushed in the fire. It perhaps could be maybe even a little too graphic or something for the viewer, maybe. It's perhaps sufficient just to have it being described with Lestat, Sam Reed here, crying for the camera, And then, of course, knowing what we know, that this didn't really, this scene wasn't visible to the people, the crew here. We get, rewatching these shots here of people reacting here. Like, what are they reacting to? They're like, what is going on here? Because as we see later, he's just sitting there without saying a word. And it is all just a projection illusion for Daniel Malloy to see, not anybody else. But we do get this moment here, and he has a panic attack and leaves. This was an interesting line. I'm still not sure what he meant with this. And still, it's not what I want, he says. So he's saying that he's not trying to delude himself or Daniel's saying more of the truth of what happened, unlike Louis, so I guess he's saying that's not the goal. Still it's not what I hunt. He's not hunting for some kind of approval or fantasy or something, right? He's about the truth, but to what extent is that true? I don't know. I don't think he's still coloring it with his perspective, of obviously. And so at this point, Daniel Malloy's like, okay, yeah, like I got some juicy stuff here, and this is a moment here too where we start to see that like Lestat wants some distance from his mother now. She still feels like she's got her son on a sort of leash here, but no, not really. He's gonna go on himself. He's like, oh, rain check on this tiki bar you want to go to. I want to spend some time with myself. By the way, there's a moment here where we see Lestat. He sees more muses in the world here. Last time I remember at the strip club he sees a vampire where I thought it was a random vampire, but he actually sees one of the vampires from when he sees his brother in the crowd of the strip club, and I thought it was a random vampire, but it was actually his brother's, like, because he's like he throughout the season so far he's been seeing visions of other people from his life, out and about, almost projecting them as if they were there. He calls them muses sometimes. So here he does see even Nikki as one of the crew people. I don't know if I can find the shot, but he does see Nikki in somewhere around here. And he'll see more people out and about, and including Magnus and everybody in later shots here. And here we have Daniel discovering that, like, oh, this is all a trick. The whole crew there thought it was weird that, like, they were just sitting there and no one's saying anything. And so now we get the reveal that the whole time it was just it was all telepathic communication, really. Like, it's an interview within the mind, and so it was not recorded, and so of course that pisses off Daniel a lot. So, like, here we really get the sense, like, oh shit, like, what is Daniel gonna do now? It's like, shit, he's like, he got hoodwinked here, and because that's a big waste of time, right? And he even the start here acknowledges that it's mean spirited, and that there's probably gonna be some consequences or something. What does he say? What can I say? Serving cunt has its consequences. He did serve. Now, here's an interesting thing. We see the Seattle Needle, like, collapse and fall here, and there's no acknowledgement of it. Similar to maybe this is foreshadowing, and maybe we'll know about what happened here. Maybe could this be just part of Lestat's imagination, a representation of how he's feeling or something? He lost his libido for his mother or something. I don't know. But remember, the first episode we had that blackout. That was barely mentioned. Well, he mentions it in text a bit, and then the lights come back on, and then the next episode we see that Ryland James reveals that it was the vampire gang that were responsible for the blackout. So maybe next episode we'll see some revelation about why the tower fell down here, like why it got, if in fact it did, but it's a weird shot here, because I don't think it has anything to do with anything else anybody's doing in the episode. We cut back to Louis on his revenge quest, his murder, Tarantino-esque quest to get rid of the Bruce, the leader. Of course, last time we found out that he's the leader here, and he gets revenge, and we're gonna get to that in a second. During that, well, basically, this kind of bounces back and forth. This is the whole thing about this episode. Really, is connecting the abuse that Claudia went through with the abuse that Lestat went through. So again, like, it's not. This episode isn't about just sugarcoating, Magnus, Lestat's creation of a become a vampire via Magnus. It's juxtaposing really just that vision with the reality of his abuse. And here again, we see him visioning another funny bits here of Magnus in the car here. It's like, oh, is this better to dress in a t-shirt? Is this like a Lestat t-shirt? I think it is a Vampire Lestat, a band t-shirt. um and and yeah, so he's like, he still has him being he's haunting his mind, so that's something that, like, I don't know if it's gonna be fully explored. Is this indicating that Lestat is going just as mad as perhaps Nikki will, or will he become like Nikki, or as Lestat, or just like a lot of vampires, are are they all just mad, and then most of them that survive are the ones that are able to kind of control their madness or subdue it or live with it, like, we have in previous episode, last episode, Daniel was saying how he gets these visions, or this feeling of this presence of Armand, where the world stands still for a bit, and Louis like, oh, that doesn't happen to me. So maybe each vampire has their own little thing, their own like traumatic, psychological disorder or something, that they have to go through. Perhaps Louis, again, he has these visions of Claudia. He's gonna also get back to that at the end of the episode. So like everyone, all these vampires are dealing with their things, and they kind of have to either dampen them down or get through them in their own different ways, which is interesting. So he here starts like saying how like he made the song for Magnus, so Magnus should be happy now, right? And he's like, I made the song for you, now get out of my head. And I think maybe he might have succeeded in getting Magnus out of his head, at least for a while, by the end of the episode. But he's still haunting him in this moment here. In the moment where we're flashing back to see the truth of the matter, right? This is the more close to reality, as Lestat's remembering the assault he experienced, because in fact Magnus wasn't just a fan who loved Lestat, and just it was all nice and romantic and a lovey-dovey siring of the Vampire Lestat. It was more of a case of sexual assault, really, or abuse, that is equivalent to what Bruce did to Claudia. And this is what Louis is trying to get Bruce to understand in his final moments here. It's like, this was a horrific thing you did, and you deserve to feel the same way. I think Louis even like takes out bits of his spine when he first disables Bruce here, as he comes to the Baby Jenks. Of course, Baby Jenks. Another thing is that I forgot, or didn't even realize this at the time, but Baby Jenks was bait, right? She drugged herself up to be able to be drunk by Lestat, so Lestat could get all loopy and drugged out through her blood, and then that way he would become more. He'd be weaker and susceptible to being killed by the vampire gang, the Tooth Gang. And so that was the whole plan, and that's why it was kind of convenient how she didn't go all the way. She stopped at her floor, got off on the elevator, just to bring them up to the floor, so Lestat and Dee could be attacked. But of course Lestat survived. So that's another thing. Like this show is I think it's becoming. It's even more sophisticated than previous seasons, and it's really kind of demanding a lot from the viewer, which I think may turn off some viewers, but I think it's very invigorating in a way, to be challenged in this way, to keep up with what's going on, and to like, even sometimes like the dialogue is like people are talking over each other, and sometimes it helps to like to rewatch a scene to catch everything that's going on. But I think I think it's the challenge is fun. I do it, and that's how I'm watching it. Maybe if you're more of a casual viewer who isn't even doing these like these videos of just going back through it, maybe that isn't as, maybe it feels a little bit more chaotic. But I think, I mean, I guess that could be a criticism that like, maybe is it good for a show to like require multiple viewings to be understood or be good? I don't know. It's because I'm into the characters, I'm into the story. I'm okay with it, but maybe some people will feel like it's a little bit too much. But anyways, this scene here, we actually see Louis read the diary pages that he ripped out of Claudia's diary, all the in season 1 and 2, right? And in that, when Daniel confronted him about it, Louis was like, "Well, I don't want that to be part of the book. We get the idea. We don't have to go through that trauma and re-experience that. That's more of a private thing that I don't want to be published, right?" And we got a sense that he read them, but he just tore them out for that purpose. And then later on in season 2, I think we get a more of a description from Claudia's own perspective. She tells Louis in Paris about what happened, and that's like a year or so after when it happened, maybe a couple of years or more. But this time we get him actually reading it, and for the purpose of making sure that Bruce hears Claudia's perspective, that he never was able to get because he was the abuser. Of course, Bruce, being an evil abuser vampire, I don't think fully understands the purpose. I feel like sadistic people like murderers and rapists probably are just so unempathetic that they probably can't, or maybe not. I feel it's possible to rehabilitate people, but to this quickly, maybe not. I don't think. At this point, I feel like Bruce is still like not really fully comprehending what he did, but at the very least, Louis gets some catharsis here, right? By reading these words directly from Claudia, and then he actually burns them too. Like, there's no more need to have them. Like they serve their purpose, and even though it's a bit, it's still problematic, the idea of like reading a private journal diary entries from someone who's dead. But like, if you're gonna do it, this is probably the best way to do it. Read it to the actual perpetrator, and then burn them alive. That's some sweet revenge, and that's the end of Bruce. Yeah, so he's Bruce is paralyzed there. I'm pretty sure he ripped out what I was gonna say earlier. He ripped out the spinal cord or something. It's kind of interesting how he did it. I guess showcasing again just how powerful Louis is these days. Chopping heads and pulling out spinal cords. Like, those are just little bits of spinal cords fragments. The individual little bones there. Is that what he took out? That's what it appears like. And of course, Baby Jenks is another, probably, likely a sort of victim of Bruce. But maybe maybe Bruce isn't completely. Maybe it's still like early stages, and he's not. She doesn't know the extent of his cruelty yet, and I'm wondering like what Baby Jenks is gonna do now. Like, does she feel still she's obviously still on Bruce's side here. Calls him, I guess they got married. They calls him her husband, and we see Louis push her. So that's another bit of vampire strengths we do see here. And then she's like, I imagine, knocked out, right? We never see her again this episode. But I suspect that she will come back to avenge Bruce, right? He's gonna make an appearance again because this whole episode's kind of about the consequences, right, of our actions. So I feel like it's the cycle of violence is gonna continue here. But anyway, so then he burns him up, and which juxtaposes with Lestat getting into a car crash because he's reliving his trauma here, and is also burned up the vehicle. He survives though, and again, he's like, well, it could have ended it there. He could have just given up his rock star life there, but the music is too alluring to him. He loves it too much, the performance of it all. And it's part of his process, part of his therapy in a way, how he deals with his trauma. And so now we go back and we see how all these characters are really our top three characters of the show, of the series. We got Lestat, Louis, and Daniel processing their trauma and what they're going to do about it here. We get the final performance of this episode, which is a nice song, a nice slow song here. And again, we see his muses / ex-lovers, abusers in the crowd here. And he's kind of, we see Nikki in there as well at some point. And we see his mother, we see Magnus, of course. So what's interesting is Magnus leaves the stage, leaves the crowd, and so is that indication that he's fully processed his experience with Magnus? Okay, the video, I have to redo the video again. Hold on a second. Okay. So we're gonna have to I don't know, how much did I miss? We're looking at the spine thing. I basically, I was just showing how he got rid of the spine, and then he like pushed baby Jenks. But you get the idea. And then so we go to the concert, and again in the crowd we see all these different characters. And then so there's Nikki right there as well. And then we see Magnus, and so again we see Magnus exit here, and so does this indicate, that he's fully processed his trauma with Magnus, and now he's able to exorcise him from his mind, from him haunting him? An interesting thing though is that we don't really see. We in previous season he did talk about Magnus that one time to Louis, but it seems like it wasn't too much in his mind. Of course, it was Louis' perspective. So I feel like, it could be a recurring thing later on. Magnus could return to haunt him, but it seems that for at least the time being, maybe we won't be seeing Magnus anymore. Maybe he's kind of like able to get rid of him for a little bit and move forward. Or even it's just a process, I guess, in general, of like these ghosts of your past are going to come in and out of your mind and life. And Gabriella might be the next one to temporarily be haunting him in actual reality, not just in his mind. She also kind of leaves, right? Does she leave? But Nikki kind of stays in the crowd. I don't know if that indicates anything. Because he's kind of like, the thing is that like maybe it's equating again Gabriella with Magnus. That's another thing I was gonna say. Like, is Lestat like processing now that like Gabriella is an abuser, similar to how Magnus was, right? Or Magnus is. Like he was justifying the incestuous relationship in the previous episode. Is he now coming to terms with the idea like, okay, no, maybe this isn't good. Maybe the power dynamics of a mother relationship with his mother is not ideal, not very good. It is abusive. And so is he equating that with Magnus now, or is the show equating that? Maybe he's not quite there yet, but the show is, by showcasing both Magnus and Gabriella exiting the concert there, and now he's distancing himself from Gabriella, and then we see him float in the air a bit, and people in the crowd are like, what is he flying? And so this is the first time he reveals his power to the outside world beyond his bandmates, right? Last time he showed it off, or the first episode, he showed it to his bandmates, and now he's showing it to his fans, his power. And of course, similar to the Théâtre de Vampire, some people can be like, oh, this is just like stage tricks, this isn't real. But there's no rope here, there's no nothing to make it look fake. There's some phones we see, so this could be a viral moment. In this next scene, we see Larry, who quit the band last episode, is back at I guess like an Alcoholic Anonymous situation. Like God's serenity, courage. That's what it looks like. Because we got indication that he was sober, and so he probably had some trouble with it in the past. And so I think he stayed in Ohio, right? And he says here that like they're doing pretty good. He's watching his previous band doing pretty well, and he's watching it through his phone and stuff. And he's saying how like he thinks that they're gonna get big, and like sooner or later people here are gonna hear about them and know about them. And so I feel like this could probably be the moment. We even get a shot here actually from like the perspective of a phone. So that could be a viral video that gets them to popularity, and then suddenly they become viral. And now, even though, as Daniel has mentioned in the interview, that the Vampire Lestat band isn't really that popular. You're only getting a few thousand people going to the shows versus other popular musicians to get way more than that. So it's like this could be the moment, and the next episode and beyond, they're actually going to become really big. That's good. I think that's what's foreshadowing here, which could be an issue here, because now Larry feels left out. He's probably going to want to come back, but will he come back to the band, or will Armand intervene? So this is the big reveal of this episode, cliffhanger situation of like Armand showing up to the meeting where Larry is. So obviously, this is the middle of nowhere, Ohio, whatever. No offense, Larry says to the woman next to him. But obviously Armand has been tracking them, and he is likely seeing that this is a vulnerable moment for Larry, and he could probably intervene somehow and start to get into the circle here in a way to communicate with Lestat again, maybe get back with Lestat, maybe enact some kind of vengeance or something, or he's part of the whole love trauma and drama here that we've been seeing. In this episode, we introduced him in the scenes of the past, and things are going to get messier and messier. And so this is fun. I'm liking this because, again, in the book Vampire Lestat, it's mostly the past. We don't get to see much of the current timeline stuff. But as a show that wants to keep these characters around for each season, I do like this, that they are spending a lot of time here in the present, and it makes it I feel like much more of an interesting watch than just having a whole season being spent during Lestat in Paris. And yeah, so this is going to be fun. What is Armand up to? The gremlin Armand, Lestat calls him. So, again, we got Louis' perspective. The first couple seasons was a little bit of Armand's perspective. We're getting Lestat's perspective. And if I remember correctly, in the Vampire Lestat book, there's a section called Armand's story. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I believe maybe it's mostly about Armand in Paris. But I think there is a book in the Chronicles of the Vampire Chronicles stories that's just about our features Armand as the main character. So I wonder if they're gonna start mixing that up and having part of the season, or at least an episode, just be Armand's perspective. And because he's probably the fourth pillar, right, of the series now. So we got Louis, Lestat, Daniel, and now Armand. And Claudia was kind of like also another major character, and then maybe she'll come back, and as we'll see, another big moment here before this was Louis going to the restaurant here, right? He got rid of Bruce, but this is the diner he mentioned to Daniel last episode. He saw a vision of Claudia, and it looks like indeed he did see someone that looks very much like Claudia. She's Regina is her name here. She's this waitress here, and he's just getting a meal or coffee here at the diner. Obviously, he's not fully complete with he hasn't fully gotten over Claudia's death. He probably never will in a certain way, right? It's a thing that you have to live with, this trauma of a loved one passing. And so he's, is it just a little moment of relief, a little moment of after avenging Claudia, he kind of wants to at least make some kind of contact with her by at least being in the vicinity, in the presence of this person who reminds him of her, looks very much like her. Of course, the same actress that plays Claudia, but I don't think it's meant to be presented as if she just looks a lot like her, Of course, what's interesting is that within the series, Claudia was played by two different actresses, and we've only ever get the perspective. We never really get her official perspective. We always get her story through the eyes of Louis, and then sometimes Armand, and then now perhaps somewhat through Lestat's viewpoint in this season, maybe. So maybe we never really got a true rendition of what Claudia looks like anyway. So it kind of works with the idea of having different castings for the character. And so, but the idea comes across that this person, of course, is very reminiscent of Claudia. He did get a phone call from his current situationship. Did you get what you wanted? He did get what he wanted, apparently, or somewhat, but not completely, because it feels like he still hasn't got complete closure, And so I wonder if Louis is gonna try to talk to Regina, for, I don't know what he would get out of it, like, because obviously it's not her, and it would just weird her out to be asked about Claudia or whatever. I don't know, or be like, oh, you remind me of somebody. That's, like, that's kind of a self-serving, selfish thing to do, but like maybe that's part of Louis' character, but maybe this is somewhat closure for him. He gets this coffee, and because I don't even know if he says he saw her, but he didn't get her table. He wasn't in her section last episode, he said. So maybe this is the first time he gets to be this close to her. Maybe that's enough, but it could also just be, again, foreshadowing to these ghosts that we're seeing, and perhaps Louis gonna actually be confronted by the ghost of Claudia later. I don't know. We'll see where that goes, but that's an interesting little moment there. But yeah, so then that's the episode. Really, really cool. I did enjoy this episode. I feel like so much is going on. There's so much bouncing back and forth, and it's definitely, again, can be a bit disorienting, but like by episode 3 here, like I'm in the groove of it. Like I'm feeling it more, and it's kind of we kind of have to wait and see how the season is gonna conclude, because there's a lot of pieces missing here, right? And like it feels like each episode is adding different pieces, to this puzzle. And so it's like by the end of the season, if there's too many pieces missing, then it might feel a little weird and odd, and too disorienting. But by the time the season's over, if things come together in a nice way, then even though it's like the stream of consciousness and non-linear structure of this season, could all come together and make sense and feel satisfying. So it's kind of hard to say at this point, but I'm kind of liking, like I said, it's liking this kind of challenge. It's like this season is a lot more challenging to really experience, and I'm kind of liking that, and it feels like it's, we're 3 seasons in, right? And it feels like it's rewarding for the long time viewers, right? And I think it's kind of what you want when you're watching a series and you've invested your time in it, right? Like you don't want each season to just be, light and fluffy, or to be like entry level every season, right? Because then it wouldn't be that satisfying, even though the marketing and perhaps they want you to believe that this season can be an entry level season. And maybe, it can be to some people, because there's because you could watch this and kind of like, because it's so non-linear and wild, it could kind of get you into the groove of it, and then you can go back to watch the first seasons to fill in the blanks. But ideally, I think it's still better to watch it in order, right? It just wouldn't make much more sense. But yeah, like I don't know, I'm enjoying I'm enjoying the process of watching this right now. And I really I like the humor of this episode, and just how, the layered and complex writing of the whole season so far has been really good. And I want them to release this full video. Oh, maybe they will. That'll be fun. Maybe it might be like a extra DVD Blu-ray feature or something. But I would watch this whole video here. That would be good marketing for the season, I think. Magnus. So yeah, that's episode 3. We'll see where it goes from here. I'll catch you next time. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Until the next time, I'll be here under the moonlight. Bye bye.